We really like brands that have some sort of person behind it, some sort of a personality behind it, because then you can do a heck of a lot with it. Again, organically.
Martians landed.
Yes.
Wearing Prada suits.
Yes.
Drinking Henry's seltzer.
Yes.
Chewing juicy fruit.
Yes, and?
Your branding here.
Yes, brand.
Your message here.
Yes, and?
A verse about
Yes.
your product here.
Yes.
I'm Hirsch Redfin.
Yes, and?
I'm a message therapist.
Yes.
And I have a podcast.
Yes, brand.
That's right, that's it.
Yes.
We'll help you fix the world.
Yes.
Or your bottom line.
All right.
Your bottom line.
Get it. I get it. Welcome to the Yes Brand Podcast.
Who is in the hot seat today on Yes Brand? Phil Masiello. Phil is the founder of CrunchGrowth. He's a seasoned entrepreneur. He's known for his revolutionary impact on e-commerce and business strategy sectors. He started out as an entrepreneur at 27 years old, and he enhanced his expertise with an MBA in marketing and finance, which makes him sound very business-like. But as you'll see in a minute, he likes to have a good time when we're talking as well. He pioneered his role in the e-commerce sector for the meal industry and did transformative work with Raw Essentials. And then he showcased his acumen with 800razors.com and demonstrated creative and effective PR strategies. His agency, as I mentioned, is called CrunchGrowth. It stands out for its innovative, cost-effective approaches for maximizing sales, particularly in food products and personal care. He also hosts the Crunching Your Growth show on E360 TV, which I was just checking out a little bit of. And he interviews leading experts and shares that wisdom on entrepreneurship, inspiring a new wave of business leaders. So we'll talk about as well the new wave of business leaders that are out there. Phil, welcome to the Yes Brand Podcast.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's
Looking
my
forward to
pleasure.
it.
Yeah, likewise. Well, I was reflecting on our conversation that we had, prior to scheduling this, and I was struck by the fact that you make entrepreneurship sound easy in a good way. I mean, you talked about a couple of hiccups and things, but it did sound like it kind of flowed, pretty, you rolled with the punches here and there, but it sounds like you have a knack for getting businesses off the ground, exiting them, selling them when that opportunity can be found, growing them, having great partnerships with people like Carol Alt, like what do you back at it and say it was pretty easy, or do you look at it and what's your take?
Well, I never look at it as that it was easy. It was a lot of pain and a lot of struggle. The first business, as you said, I built when I was 27 years old, and that was a complete and utter disaster. I was totally thought I knew more than I actually did know. It was a failure of leadership, a failure of management, of process, and just a complete disaster. And I did it for 3 years. I didn't get any sleep. I probably would have been better off working at McDonald's. I would have made more money. But at the end of it, when I sold it, I took the money, and that's when I went to graduate school. And it wasn't because I thought I needed more education. I thought I needed to think differently. And
Mm.
so that was the impetus for going to grad school. And then from there, I got involved. I made a small investment in a retail chain in Washington, D.C. that was specialty food. And there were two stores, and I got involved, and we grew that business. And that was really, I think, a defining moment for me, because I learned the people that were involved in that business were bigger. They were real estate developers, and they bought that business because they were doing some big real estate development, and they wanted those retail stores. And so these guys were very seasoned, and I had a very senior position. And so they taught me a lot, and I learned a lot. I learned about raising capital. I learned about managing growth, because we grew that business from 2 stores to 12 stores, plus a couple of acquisitions after that in a very short period of time, 5 to 6 years. And so that, I think, was more important for me. And I did a lot of entrepreneurial things there. I set up a catalog business. I set up a pop-up stores, just a whole bunch of things. And they allowed me to take some risks but controlled risks, and they taught me, I think, how to be a better leader. And then once we sold that business, that drove me into the next business, which set me up for sort of e-commerce. I saw the e-commerce train coming, and I saw the need. I thought that there was an opportunity to do food on the internet, meals. And so that was what started that whole piece. And that was quite successful. I mean, we did a
Yeah.
million in the first year, although the infrastructure, which we take for granted today, FedEx, UPS, it was not really set up to handle the volume of packages and how to handle things like that. But nonetheless, it was good. We wound up exiting it. A supermarket chain bought it. And at that time, nobody really understood e-commerce. Nobody really understood websites as well as they do today. So it was really the dawn of the internet. And that sort of, again, that put me into a bigger company, a multi-billion dollar company that I sort of figured out how to navigate that world. Although I will tell you that I'm a terrible employee. It's not a good environment for me. So
Well, none of what you said suggested that you were destined to be a wonderful employee.
yeah.
Um, but let me ask you this. So when you did come out of that first nightmarish experience, but in a way, it's like if you get out alive, and you learn
Yeah.
something,
Yeah.
then, and you moved on to something that how did you feel coming out of that? When did you feel like, okay, I'm successful, I'm succeeding?
Last year.
Yeah.
No, the first one I felt when I got done, I felt like a complete and total failure. But at the same time, I sat back and said, look, I'm young. I didn't die. I don't have as much money as I should have. I wasted a lot of money, but what I learned a lot about myself and where my weaknesses were. And so it really took me to reflect upon myself and through the help of some others to really take a step back and reflect on that and admit to myself where my flaws were. I think that I had this attitude that I knew more than everybody else, and I wasn't a good listener. And like I said, I wasn't a good leader. And so I learned that I was hurting. If I continued down that path, if I continued and just said, I was good, it wasn't my fault, I would have never been successful in the future.
So you owned up to that and learned lessons, and that's clearly, a huge step in the right direction. Did you have a vision of have you ever felt like you had a vision of what was next, or while you were doing something, or you were just in it and seeing where it would lead?
No, I had I got involved with again like this specialty food company called Something Place Gourmet, and we had retail stores, very high-end specialty items. And when I was there, I saw opportunities. And like I said, that company, the leadership of that company, they allowed me to be sort of an entrepreneur. I could go to them and say, look, we have these big stores. This was one of the conversations actually. We have these big stores and I understand the economics, but at the time we were also manufacturing. It was specialty food. We had French bakers in there making bread. We had pastry chefs in there making pastries. We had all these things, and I was responsible for the economics of it, and as well as the store's economics. And I said, look, we have all these manufacturing places. I mean, we made our own ice cream. We roast our own coffee before Starbucks even thought about it. And so I said, look, if we should get some smaller stores to penetrate downtown DC, and this way we can leverage our top 10 items in every single category. Don't have to build a big store, and we don't have to put production in there. We can ship the products in every morning and, run out at the end of the day. And we did that. And that was successful. It was successful for the company. It sort of leveraged some of the costs down. And that got me thinking about a whole different model, which was really my next venture, which led to doing online food because I built smaller stores that were, if you've ever been to New York City or Paris, is a brand called Pret a Manger, which are grab and go meal stores. And I had that thought to do that here in the United States after we exited from Sutton Place, and that led to doing meals on the internet because I saw the internet and I thought, I wonder if people will buy will buy food on the internet, will buy meals,
Right.
right? I
Right.
saw what I mean at the time we had Omaha Steaks and you had some of those guys, but they were just selling, items, right?
Right.
Not a meal solution, not a, you know, and so I thought, let's give that a shot. We have the infrastructure. All we have to do is set up a website, which at the time was a very challenging feat, you might say.
Yeah.
It's not like today
Well,
where we have Shopify and
yeah.
WordPress and Magento and all these plug and play sort of platforms.
Yeah, it was a big deal, and it could be a protracted adventure or
Sure.
misadventure. You know what? So now with Crunch Growth, you are spotting businesses that have potential, and maybe they're not optimizing their growth potential, their revenue potential. What does it take to identify or spot a really great business idea?
So with Crunch Growth, we're a full service agency, right? And we have clients, some very big ones and some very small ones. For us, what we look for is we have a very simple four quadrant grid. And the bottom left says we're not different and we're not better. The right quadrant says, on the bottom says, we're different. Top right quadrant says we're better and different. Top left says we're better. And so we look at brands that we want, because to be honest, we don't work with everybody that comes to us and we don't work with
Right,
everybody that we target because we look at it and say, okay, you want to work with us and you have this natural chewing gum. Okay, well, what makes you better than someone else? Or what
right.
makes you different? Right? To be better and different is ultimate, but you can get by with being better and you can get by with being different. You could be successful, I mean. But if you can't answer that question, then you're just a seller. And I'm not interested in working with sellers, and our company isn't interested in working with sellers because it's very difficult to make them successful because if you're a seller, you're a me too. And then what do you have? You just have price to work with. And that's just a black hole, right?
Yeah,
I mean, you see these guys on that sell on Amazon, and they'll all talk about how they made millions and millions of dollars. Maybe they did millions and millions of dollars in revenue, but if you're selling Crest toothpaste and Listerine and all that stuff, come on, how can you be successful long term? You don't own the product, you don't own the brand, you don't own the manufacturing, you have no control over the margins. So you're buying it from somebody. They have the advantage because they're selling it to you as a profit. Now you have to try and figure out how to sell it to the consumer at and you're spending 20% of your sales on advertising alone. So that's why we try
yeah.
and stay away from that business. We only want to focus on brands and we want to focus on brands that are either different or better and have some sort of an advantage. And that simple grid is how we evaluate whether we want to do business with people or not.
Now, having the advantage is one thing, getting it to market, get, choosing the right platform, the right distribution model for a business. You mentioned, if you're selling something on Amazon, but you don't own the product, you're just moving it, you're a reseller, whatever, it's like nothing. But what's a good model for moving products into the marketplace now?
Yeah, I mean, today we have so many different options that over and above what we used to have, right? In the past, we had, just basic advertising and things like that. But today, once you figure out your advantage, right? And it doesn't matter. You could be a startup or you could be a $10 million a year company, $20 million a year company. We have those too that don't really understand who they are yet. And so we try and look at it holistically and say, okay, what's the goal, right? Where do we want to get to? And then we look at all the channels and we say, okay, we've got micro influencers today. I'm not a big fan of big influencers. I'm more of a fan of micro influencers. I'd rather have 100 people online talking about my product than one big one. We've got that whole piece if it's used correctly, right? We've got short form video, which has so many different outlets and so many opportunities that are unpaid, right? That are more organic. And what you have to do is take that message and figure out how you're going to take that and build a connection with the user. And you can do it effectively through short form video to make it, to make that connection. There's a lot of discussion about AI and creating those types of videos. I'm not a fan. We use tons of AI. Don't get me wrong. I'm a fan of AI. But if you're not authentic today, you're not going to go anywhere. Customers looking for authenticity. You can't just plug and play a little product video. It's not going to work. So you have to have that authentic message. We really like brands that have some sort of person behind it, some sort of a personality behind it, because then you can do a heck of a lot with it. Again, organically. So you're always going to spend money, right? But you're either going to spend it putting forth effort, doing things organically. SEO is a lot of effort. Building videos is a lot of effort. Understanding how to build those videos is a lot of effort. It's not so much paid. And then you've got your advertising. But to me, we look at advertising as more of a support vehicle. We do a tremendous amount today with connected TV on OTT channels, connected TV ads. Traditional TV, I can't tell you, when I had the Razor company and when we did Raw Essentials, we spent millions of dollars on traditional TV. And it always bothered me because you couldn't track it. You didn't know.
Yeah.
Everybody gives you impressions. Well, I don't take impressions to the bank. And so it always bothered me. But today we've got connected TV where we know exactly who's watching. We know where they're watching, when they're watching. We've got pixels to put on the site. We can track them. We can remarket them afterwards. And the returns are tremendous. And so, and we can play with it. We can tweak it. So that type of creative, again, we can help spec out. We don't create those videos. We have partners that do, but because you need that to be really high quality, TV quality, 4K, but we help with the scripting of it because we think we do understand how to really get the message out there. So there's no one formula, but I will say that it all starts with your message and then what's the authentic approach, and it's a function of using almost a melting pot of micro influencers, short form video, a spokesperson for your company, all these things, and ads, and Amazon, and Google, and all the other places that you can sell.
Yeah, my attitude has been that, that the organic stuff is where it starts. You start organically, you start with that authenticity, and like you say, the personality behind the brand. That's what always fascinates me is the personal brand behind the corporate brand. What is the essence of it, the beating heart, so to speak. And then you leverage all of that stuff with bought media.
Yep.
People would look at, clients historically when I was working with those kinds of brands would, look at them as two different options. Oh, do we
Right.
go organic or do we go earned or bought? And it's like, well, you want to first start with something real.
Yeah.
Start with what's real, but that's not going to get you to the finish line.
No.
That viral fantasy of, it's gonna blow up. Yeah, it'll get 1 million views. That's great. So you got 1 million views. You think you got 1 million sales from 1 million views, you know? But I love the idea of the core truths that are in there. Do you feel like these days audiences have lost a little bit of faith in advertisers, in brands, in core truths? Do they get a bit confused? What's your take on audiences?
Oh, 100%. I agree. They've absolutely become more cynical, more skeptical. They don't rely on ads. They don't want to listen to it. The generation of buyers under 45 are numb to just basic ads. And I think that there are a lot of brands out there that still just do the same thing they've been doing for 30 years and running the same ads. There's no emotional connection there. And so we we guide our clients and show them statistics and show them really how people are reacting to ads, because the other piece about social media is it's almost like a it's almost like a focus group. You can look at how people's ads are doing, and you can read the comments on the ad, and you can see how people are reacting to the ad and what they say. Oh, this is, this is ridiculous. Oh, this is garbage. Oh, this is a lie. This is BS. Oh, and so you can understand it. And you can also look at, we have so many different tools today to look at the statistics of how an ad does on, whoever's ad. I don't care whose ad it is. I can see
Yeah.
pretty much the statistics, how it got site traffic, what it did, what it didn't do, what it cost. And so you show that to them and you say, look, there's a better path. There's a more authentic path. You have to find a more authentic way to talk to people. And that, I think, is where our strength lies, because we're very good at it when people listen. There's a lot of people that don't want to listen. A lot of brands don't want to listen. They'll
Yeah.
just hire us and say, I want to do the same thing over and over again. And frankly, it doesn't work for us. And we'll tell them that doesn't work for us. And so, I'll give you a recommendation for somebody, because to us, we're building a brand too. And Crunch Growth, we want we want to make sure that clients, grow. And I don't
Yeah.
want to hear, we do a lot of work ahead of time. I think the client sometimes, or the prospective client, thinks that they're interviewing us, but we're really interviewing them. And by the end of it, we'll let them know if we want to work with them or not, because
Yeah.
based on the decisions or based on the questions we ask, just because it's not worth it for us. It's too aggravating. We're not a burn and churn type of agency. There's a lot of agencies out there that just sign up clients and they don't care after 3 months if that client leaves them, or 6 months, or they try and sign them into 6 month or 1 year contracts. We don't do that. So we're not that type of an agency. We're in it to make it happen. So I don't get excited unless I see something that I think we can go from 10 million to 50, or 10 million to 100, or 1 million to 50 million. Those things excite me. If I look at something and I go, hey man, you have something here and I'd love to help you.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where I wanted to kind of take this, is the Crunch Growth brand, now with all your experience and your, in a sense, it's not about just building one brand. It's about working with, all these different kinds of companies and seeing them hopefully grow and rise. How do you differentiate Crunch Growth? I mean, we talked about a lot of your strengths, but a lot of people will profess to be great at some of that stuff. Sometimes it's hard because you have to compete with people who are professing to do what you do well, and they may not do it as well. But what's your lead, your first step that you take with your image?
Yeah, that's a good question. We frankly, we get so busy sometimes that we forget to focus on our own, like, social media and our own
Yeah.
branding and what we put out there in front of people, because we get so busy. But to us, most of the time, our business is coming to us from referrals, people that we work with, brands that we work with, companies that we work with, and it could be international, right? We do business with companies in Israel, Brazil, Italy, UK, South Korea, but we've been fortunate in that people refer us a lot. We have done outreach, and frankly, we try and be a little. I follow my own steps, so we don't really do a lot of cold email outreach like a lot of other people do, where you get your inbox flooded. We do more items on LinkedIn, and it's a longer process and a harder process. But what we do is, what we have a system where we'll look for specific brands with a specific criteria in in specific categories, right? And then we'll outreach at a very high level, but we don't just hit. I'm sure you're on LinkedIn, and I'm sure every day
Yeah. Yeah.
these people that say, I can 10x your sales and all that. We don't
Yeah.
play that game. What we do is the first email is really, hey, let's connect. I really love your brand. Here's why I love it. right? So it's not boilerplate. I say, here's why we love it, right?
Right.
And then I'll send them something on the next outreach, right? Which may be 2 days later. Here's a study that, in your category about how to make more, you know, get more sales, get more profit, whatever. Right. So now I'm forming a connection with them, right? I'm not just asking them for something, I'm giving them something. And then the third one, we may do something else. Fourth one, right? By the fifth email, by the fifth connection. Oh, once we're connected, once they've accepted that connection, by the way, anytime they post anything on LinkedIn, we comment on it.
Yeah, you engage.
So
Yeah.
now, we've given them something. Now we're engaging with them. By the fifth or sixth touch point, they feel like we have a relationship. They feel like they know us,
Yeah.
right? And then we're asking to hop on a call. At that point in time, we're saying, "Hey, can we get on a quick call? I have an idea for your business. I'm not selling you anything. I got an idea." And then once we get them on the call, we're prepared because we'll say, "Look, I was looking at this, and here's what I see. I see what you're doing on Amazon. I see what you're doing on your website. I see what you're doing here. Here's a way to make that better. Are you interested? Because we can dive into it further. I can put something together for you and project it out. And then we get the ball rolling. So it's more, again, it's the same way as we preach to sell to a consumer is what we're trying to do with brands, is to form a connection with them and give them something, give them more value than we're asking for. Right? I'm just asking for 5 minutes of your time on a phone call, but I've just given you $1 million worth of value in some of the reports I gave you. Make sense?
Right. Yeah, yeah. And I really hope that a lot of the younger agencies and and people who do what we do are listening, because it's not an outrageous approach, and yet it really is something that is not being tried or employed as much as it used to be, because everybody thinks there's a shortcut to, or it's a numbers game. They figure, look, if I reach out to 500 people, 500 companies with a mediocre message, then I'll get one company with, and it could happen by accident. But the reality is you're studying companies and you have to have a reaction to them in order to reach out to them.
Yeah.
And so that's where the magic begins, is that there's a reaction that you and your team have that suggests to you that there's something to explore there. And what's great about LinkedIn, for example, is that it's dynamic. So they're posting, you're sharing thought pieces and thought leadership by posting, and not just in a meeting, or just so it shortens that process. But I think we've lost so much patience that we don't leave room for that process anymore. We're like, okay, well, let's boom, 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 let's get it done. And that doesn't happen, by itself or synthetically, that stuff.
Well, I think what's happened is there are so many of these people out there that couldn't do it, that all of a sudden sell. You follow my platform. I built a marketing firm, and follow my platform, and here's how I got clients. And you're 100% right. What they do, and I've spoken to a lot of them. What they do is they get these automated systems. They pull lists from wherever you want to pull them from. There's a million different places. They set up 15, 20 URLs with 15 or 20 different email addresses. And then they load it into a system with this, half-baked outreach message, and they go to town. And you're 100% right. If I send out 100,000 emails, yes, you're 100% correct. I am going to get 5 or 6 people to get on a phone call, and I'm probably going to close one of them, because even a blind squirrel gets a nut every
Right.
once in a while. But that's not how I want to do it. We're looking for we study who we're targeting. We know who we're targeting, and we know that we can help them because we've looked at something. Maybe we've seen an ad. Maybe I'll give you a perfect example. We spend a lot of time on social media, unfortunately, because we have to.
Yeah.
because of our jobs. I was looking at this brand and watching the ads that they were running and see that they weren't getting anywhere. So I sent a message to the CEO. I said, I know I know this category really, really well. We've been in this category for 20 years. I can help you. This ad is terrible, and here's why. I don't mean to insult you, but it's a terrible ad, and here's why. And I gave him 5 points. Here's a better ad. I just gave you a better ad. I I guarantee you, if you test this ad against yours, you'll get more interactions. Not the be all end all. It's not going to get you $1 million in sales, but it's going to get better than what you got. And sometimes they do it, and then they call you up and go, "Okay, I want to talk." Okay, great, let's
Yeah.
talk. But I'm giving them something, no risk. I don't care. Takes me, it takes us maybe 20 minutes to create a great ad. If I have a thought in my head, I give it to my folks and we create it. So we're very careful about, we want to work with brands that we know we can get from point A to point Z, right? We can
Right.
get you where you want to be if you listen to us. But I don't want to just work with anybody. I'm not looking for volume. I'm looking for quality.
Yeah, that's exactly it, Phil. Is the quality versus volume. I feel the same way. I feel like I want to work with the person who cares enough about their message. Let's say in my case, enough about their personal brand message
Sure.
that they want to have these conversations. They want to work with me. They want to hear my ideas. They're not looking to hit and run and get something, get rid of something or get it out of their way. They want to actually make things better with what they're doing. So that's why the methodology works for me, because the more careful personal engagement works for me, because that's the way I want to work with them, you
Sure.
know. So I'm not plugging them into some gigantic operation or some assembly line, and
Right.
I never have. So, but I think that the other thing is largely an illusion. I think the other idea, it's like you say, you send out 100,000 things. Yeah, but what are you really doing? What are you doing? And also those other everybody other than that five or six who responded to you are kind of lost to the wind. Whereas if you're talking to five companies and you end up actually doing business with one of them, those other four are not necessarily lost to the wind. They may be people down the line. They may be friends. They may become associates, colleagues, referrers. Who knows what can happen? So it's a win-win all around when you do it that way. Anyway, it's fun
We
to
don't
talk
lose
about this stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we don't lose clients. I'll tell you that.
No,
Yeah, I started CrunchGrowth 12 years ago after the razor business, and the first client we had, which was why I started the business, because they're a huge company. They're a multi-billion dollar fortune company, and they have multiple brands, and we still have them today, to this day.
that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, so as I said at the beginning, I didn't know where this would go, and I'm glad it kind of went this direction. I had some other fun game ideas, which I still haven't figured out how to incorporate back into this show, but I will. But can you leave us with a piece of advice for a young company that is building its own brand in today's marketplace?
Yeah, absolutely. The biggest thing that you need to focus on, because that will lead you down the path of how you're going to go to market, is to truly understand who your customer is. Get on the phone, talk to the people who bought from you once or bought from you twice. If you haven't started selling yet, start selling. Start selling, find people who are going to buy your product and find out who they are and find out everything you could possibly know about them and build yourself, a persona. And that's going to lead you down the path to successful marketing, to successful communication, everything.
Phil Masiello, thank you so much for being on the show with me. I hope you will come back
Yeah.
and join us again. Who knows what kind of fun games we'll have to play, but definitely I know we'll enjoy the conversation. So thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me. I enjoyed it. I'm always up for a game.
All right.
If you liked the show,
Yes, and
it worked for you,
yes, then
subscribe and leave a
yes, friend.
5-star review.
Yes, friend.
Tell all your friends.
Yes, friend. Brand.
Get your branding here.
Yes, Brand.
Get your branding here.
Yes, Brand.
Did I make it clear?